What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Morris, aka Dr. Digital, and today we are in the Teachers Lounge where amazing educators do amazing things. And right now we are sitting with Dr. Monell, y'all. Hey. You feel me though? Don't talk about. I ain't got no sense. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good.
I'm good.
You look amazing.
Thank you.
I like this.
Thank you. I try.
You got the drip.
Thanks. Yeah. Little drip.
I like that. Educators can dress, y'all.
Yes, we can. Yes,
you better watch out. Shoot. All right. So, thanks for coming
Absolutely.
to the podcast.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
This is our first season. I'm excited. You mean a whole lot to me.
Thank you.
In so many ways. We'll put it out, give your flowers first before we start. Don't make me cry, girl. Don't make me cry.
Don't make me cry.
But a couple things about who you are.
Yeah.
Amazing wife.
Thank you.
Phenomenal mother.
Thank
Phenomenal
you.
mother. Lord have mercy. I wish it was a cut and paste sometimes, boy. You're a phenomenal mom.
I try.
You do some amazing stuff for your sons.
Thank you.
Principal.
Yes.
Phenomenal principal.
Yes.
Right?
I try.
Top principal. We ain't talking about assistant. We talking about top.
I am a principal of a great school.
Great school.
Yes.
Yes. You're lucky to have her. Just want to let y'all know y'all.
It's a great school, great staff, great students. Absolutely.
Okay. And published author?
Yes, I've done some articles with the other Dr. Monell.
Yes,
Put
you
it
have.
Out there. Yes.
Dr. Monell. Shout out to you, man. What's up? How you doing? And then you also low key do some activism stuff on the side, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
You out there with your t-shirts.
I'm out there.
You got your t-shirt.
I'm out there.
Yes. And your Instagram be popping.
Something.
Yeah.
I try to do a little bit of social media.
Yeah.
Try to do a little bit of social media when I can. Put some stuff out there. Mm-hmm. Let people know what's important.
Can I tell them you bake?
Yes, I have not baked since. I haven't baked since the pandemic because principalship keeps me busy.
Yes,
definitely keeps me busy. I was actually on my way here and I was on the phone with a friend, and she said, "Man," she was like, "I meant to hit you up over the break to ask you to bake a coquito cake," and I was like, "Man, I haven't done that since." I know, right? You had a coquito cake. So I have not baked in a while because my job keeps me pretty busy. But yeah, I love to bake when I get opportunity.
When you gonna make red velvet again?
You know, if I get some requests and I know in advance, then I don't mind doing it.
Okay, put it in my first. Y'all gotta wait. Y'all gotta wait. That red velvet be hitting, boy. Yeah. That red velvet be velting, boy. I'm trying to tell you. Okay. So now that we I've covered some highlights about you real quick, we're gonna get into this whole thing. Tell me about Dr. Angela Monell from the beginning.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
Man. How far back do you want me to go?
When did you decide that you really want to get into like this whole education thing?
Wow. Okay. So I definitely denied education for a while. So one thing I always put out there is I'm adopted. I share that with everybody. And what I learned kind of along the way, my mother always shared with me that my biological family were educators. On my maternal side, my grandfather was an assistant principal. My grandmother was a media specialist. My father's side, my grandmother was an educator for 40-some years in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So
2-5. Shout out to the 2-5.
252. So that that was something my mom always shared with me growing up. But I was like, I don't want to be an educator. But I've always gravitated towards students and towards kids, even in my summer jobs. Fast forward, went to college, undergrad at Towson University. Shout out to Towson.
Where's it at?
It's in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore.
I'm from the DMV.
PG?
PG County, originally from PG County, Maryland.
Okay,
pretty girl county is what they say.
You feel me?
But I majored in mass communications. Did not even think about majoring in education. Once I graduated, again, I started substitute teaching. And I was like, working at after school programs, like, and it just kind of found me, you know. My mom really encouraged me to go back and get my master's. She said, you know, why don't you major in special education? You'll always have a job. Went to Bowie State University. Shout out to Bowie.
Shout out to the Bowie. HBCUs, baby.
HBCUs, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and then I started working at a school for emotionally disabled students. And it just kind of took off from there. And I worked at that school. I went into administration at that school. And then my life just kind of, you know, took off from there. And I've been in education ever since. Taught middle school up there in Silver Spring, Maryland. When I moved to North Carolina, I taught middle school. And, you know, when I went back to get my doctorate, I said, you know, I don't want to go back into administration. You know, I said, I'm going to get my doctorate and, you know, and I went back into administration. When I moved, after I moved to, we moved to Winston, went back into administration. And what really, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a principal because it's a tough job. It's a great job. I love every bit of what I do. And my biological, my grandmother on my father's side passed a couple years ago. And during the pandemic, I went to her funeral, and I was sitting with my brothers, and they talked about her being an educator, and they talked about how she was an educator over 40 years in the same classroom, how she educated, you know, so many students in that community, how she paid for students to go to college. And, you know, I was really in between at that moment trying to decide, you know, do I want to be a principal? Is this what I want to do? And that solidified it for me right there. Like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And at that moment, you know, I was in the process of interviewing for becoming a principal and looking at some other positions and what was my trajectory getting ready to be. And I just prayed on it, and I said, this is it. This is it. So here I am.
Oh, that's dope.
Here I am.
That's a dope story.
It's who I am.
Yeah.
It's who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing. And when you have a purpose, you know, you're gonna be put into your purpose, and you're gonna do what you're destined to do.
You living it too.
I'm living it. I'm living every bit of it, and I love it.
That's dope, man. That's an amazing. Oh man.
It's in my blood. It's in my
It's
blood.
in your blood.
It's in my blood.
You try to run from it though a little bit.
I tried. You can run, but you can't hide.
You cannot.
Cannot hide.
So tell me about this. I want to back up a little bit. You
Yeah.
was talking about working in like the special education and the substitute teacher. How was that for you?
So it was really interesting because the school that I went to elementary school, where I went to elementary school, I was actually substituting for my first grade teacher. No, I'm sorry, my second and third grade teacher. And I used to think, man, she is so mean. I used to be like, oh my gosh, this teacher is so mean. But when I graduated from college and I went back and she used to ask me to substitute for her class, I was like, oh my gosh, Miss Chase asked me to substitute for her class. And I quickly realized elementary school is not for me.
Shut up, Miss Chase.
Shout out to Miss Chase. But those kids ran all over me.
What?
They ran all over me. Oh my goodness. But it fit. It was neat being at my elementary school. And after I was substituting for a little while, then I started working the after school program. And that became kind of my full-time, what I did. And it just happened. And then I eventually got a job working at a program called Choice Middle Schools program. And I think that's after that is when I started working on my master's, because I realized we were chasing kids after school to come to the after school program because their grades weren't that great and they didn't want to come to the school. They were referred. It was actually a federally funded program.
Okay.
And the kids didn't want to come to the program, so we would be chasing the kids after school.
Because y'all need that data.
Well, we needed the data. We needed them to do better in school.
Right.
You know, we had after school, we had snacks for them. We would sit down and tutor and all these things. Then if they didn't come, we would go to the house. We would meet with them every day, talk to the parents. So it was a great program.
Yeah.
So it just kind of rolled out from there, and we just tried to really make sure that we were able to support the schools. And now I think about running a high school, there's programs now that still do some of those things, you know, so.
Y'all would have had me as a student boy. Y'all had snacks. I would have been there.
Right.
You know, talking about juicy juice.
Right.
So, what happened after? Tell me about what happened after you decided to go into more or less the elementary component? Like you got into the middle school?
So I got into middle school. So I think I ended up in middle school when I came back after I worked for the school for emotionally disabled students. I worked with them, and I left that entity, and I ended up going to work in the public school.
Okay.
Because I wanted to get some experience working in public school, and I hadn't done that before. So I worked at Sligo Middle School in Silver Spring, and I actually ran down here it's called EC for Exceptional Children, but I was a resource teacher for special education, so I ran a special education department. So that was really my first introduction into. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me back up. I actually left that school, and I took a position it was a principal for a school for students with autism. That's what it was.
Interesting.
So I made that shift, and the school had a evening component where students left the day program, and they had a group home component. Now, the school had been in existence for quite some time, had lots of issues with accreditation, things like that. So I worked to really get the day side. I was in charge of the day side, not in charge of the group home piece. Right. So I got the accreditation up for the academic and the day program. But there were so many things that were already happening with the school that Maryland State Department of Education the school just couldn't sustain. So the school ended up closing. So I was out of a job, as was everyone else. So we did the best we could at the time. I was only there for about maybe 6 or 7 months. So I left, and that's when I went to, I was teaching middle school as an inclusion teacher at Sligo Middle School. And that was, I think, February. June school year ended. We got a new principal. And shout out to Dr. Rhodes.
Dr. Rhodes.
Dr. Rhodes, who's my mentor. I got a phone call in the summertime, and he asked me to be to lead his special ed department.
Okay.
I was like, man, how did he find me?
Pay raise?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Shout out there.
But here's what I learned from him, is you always look in the building to see who's in your building. And that's what he did.
Dropping bars.
You look and see what leaders are in your building, and you build your team.
You dropping gems.
And that's what he did, and that's what I learned from him. And I was talking to him last week. He has been so instrumental in my growth to this day. I mean, that was 2006, 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there. So, but Dr. Rhodes is really instrumental in my life and being a mentor and helping me get this current principalship. I mean, just everything. He has taught me so much. So he's in Pennsylvania now. So I've learned a lot along the way. So I taught middle school there. We moved to Charlotte area. Taught middle school there for 6 years. Then we moved to Winston. Taught middle school at Haynes Middle School. Shout out to Forsyth County. And then I transitioned to Guilford County.
Okay. All right. Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about Haynes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Haynes real quick.
Yeah.
I met you at Haynes.
You did. You told me that. You told me that, and I'm vaguely remembering.
Yeah, I was doing the STARS program, Students Taking Action, Reaching Success program. We would come in, kind of like what you was doing, at the after school joint.
Yeah.
We was doing it during school hours. And I was teaching. I was an educator for the middle school, all the middle schools in certain regions within the county. And I would go in one day a week, and we would do activities with the students and student engagement and team building and stuff like that. It was really dope. But I seen you in the hallway, and you had seen me. I had on some frat stuff that day. Shout out to the bruh. Shout out to the kids. Shout out, bruh. But you see me, you was like, yo, my husband's the bruh. And I was like, a word?
He was like, I don't know him. I don't know him.
He was like, yeah, it's Gemini. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I had already met him when he first got on campus as a professor at Winston State. And I was like, dang, that's his way. I ain't put 2 and 2 together until later. But yeah, we met.
I'm just the cuter Dr. Monell.
Huh?
I'm just the cuter Dr. Monell.
You are. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to deny that. But from what I can tell at the time, though, working there and seeing how you handle your students, You ain't play.
That's true.
You did not play.
That's true.
Them kids did not break line. They did not. You stay a straight line, go to the cafeteria. It was it.
That's it.
But I liked it though, and then we later met, throughout the time and stuff. But you become part of the family for me,
Thank you.
and I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. I'm gonna cry. So now you're a principal.
Yes.
Top principal at an amazing school, right?
I try.
Southwest, right?
Southwest Guilford High School.
Guilford
yes.
in Greensboro.
Yeah, and High Point.
High Point.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
At the ranch.
At the ranch.
At the ranch.
Okay.
Yes.
So, tell me your journey, because you didn't just start out there. You didn't start out there. You was assistant principal first.
Yes.
Tell me about the assistant principal. What's the day in the life of your shoes as an assistant principal, and then tell me the day of the life of your shoes as an actual principal, and now like a head principal.
Wow. Okay. So so I started as an assistant principal in 2016.
Okay.
The job is very different. Very different. So as an assistant principal, I had a great principal over me in the fact that I was given lots of experiences. And as an assistant principal, you want that because I don't know if you're ever fully prepared for a principalship, but the experiences that you have under a principal are critically important because it does put you in that mindset and that mind frame of being able to be active in a particular situation. So as an assistant principal, I was assistant principal of the year.
Okay, wait a minute. We ain't gonna go by that. Hold on, wait a minute. Say it again, please.
I got assistant principal of the year.
Okay.
I was able to do a lot of equity work.
Yeah.
At Southwest, we increased our enrollment in our AP courses, which was very important in ensuring that our Black and Brown students were able to have access to those courses. And even being able to help those students not only get into those courses, but be able to sustain in those courses. And, it's about helping students understand that you can have access, but also how can we support you in making sure that you fit in those classes, you belong in those classes as well. Just building a lot of relationships. We talked a lot about the restorative practices. I helped with policy change. I helped with that restorative mindset. We did a lot of work around that. We just did our third training for restorative practices.
What you specialize in, by the way?
Right, I do.
She specializes.
We just did our third training around that. We've had some people leave in the process, but we're trying to really work with. Prior to the pandemic, we had done a lot of work with around our discipline and ensuring that if students get in trouble, that they come back to why they got in trouble, right, and what the processes are around that. Help reorganize and reimagine our in-school suspension program. So it's not that you just go in, you get in trouble, and then you go back to class. But when you're in there, let's talk about why you got in trouble. What can you do differently? And people have a misconception around restorative practices. They think that means you don't get suspended, or you don't get in-school suspension, or you don't get in trouble, and that's not what it is. It's the processes around it that make it look different, right? It's about, if you get in trouble, what are we going to do to make sure that you don't get in trouble again? And we can't keep you from getting in trouble, but we're definitely going to make sure that you've processed through what happened. Who did it affect? And, as we talk to students, we get to that question of, because we walk through a series of questions, what happened? Who did it affect? What do you think you can do to make it right? There's a whole series of questions that we talk through that everybody doesn't talk through with students. Right. It's just you get in trouble when you go home, or you get in trouble, you go to ISS, and that's it. Which is, we even started with a name change back in, I think, maybe 2017 or 2018, a restoration station instead of just in-school suspension.
I like that.
Okay. We started with that. So when we ask students, who did it affect, they start to realize, my actions didn't just affect me. It affected me, it affected the other person, it affected my parents, because maybe my parents had to come up, maybe my parents had to take off of work and come up here. And that's hard because some of our families, you know, if they're not working just a regular 9 to 5, or they work at night, or they have to sleep during the day and then they have to work at night, they have to get up and come up here, you know, so that affects them differently. It affects my teachers. It affected the people in the hallway that I may have had a conflict with. So students start to understand that their behavior just doesn't affect them. And it might make them think twice before they, you know, they want to have an argument with somebody, or they want to get into an altercation with somebody. So we try to help students think differently around the process. We try to give them people to go to if you have a conflict. We just put up QR codes in the hallway. So if you have a conflict with somebody, hit that QR code, and we can do we have people now, more people now that are trained that can sit down and do a conference with you before it turns into something else. So
Wow.
It doesn't make us perfect. It doesn't make us you know, like we don't have any discipline, or we don't have, but we're trying to put things in place for our students. And that's, you know, that's what I want people to understand, the misconception of, you know, oh, you don't suspend, or you don't, you know, you don't discipline. It's not that. It's our processes around discipline. We try to make them, we try to help students get that communication and that social piece to understand what it actually means. So
That's dope. Wow. I didn't know it had all of that.
We're trying to do something different, because students have come back different from the pandemic.
Yeah.
They're different.
They're not the same.
Not the same.
Not
As
the
we
same.
start talking about digital literacy and social media, it's impacting a lot.
And y'all got the QR codes in the schools?
Up in the hallways. We're putting them up in the classroom. We have 2 people in our in-school suspension room, so we have an opportunity, some more flexibility for students to either get to people, or they can be out in the hall and they can kind of move around and start interacting with students. So it's not just, we just want it to look different.
Yeah, that's more different. Digital savvy.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, you know, that's smart. That's dope. Yeah.
We're you know, I just last year I bought iPads for my restoration station teachers, so they can move around and meet with students independently as they're going to classrooms. So we have it set up where if a student was in trouble, say if you had in-school suspension for a couple of days, and then you go back to class the next day, we have the model we have set up, and it's been since coming back. I just hired the second person to be in there. I bought iPads so they can go to the class of the student. All right, these are the strategies we talked about. Check off. Okay, which one are you going to use? Remember, this is where you had the issue, right? We've talked about these strategies in restoration station. All right, so they're doing surveys with the kids. All right, you know where to go. You know who to talk to. If you hit click, 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 boom. Okay, and that's how we're going to kind of keep our data. So we're trying to really even restore this model that we have kind of set up. Doesn't make us perfect, but when we think about the collaboration and the communication and building the social community for the students, we're trying to fit into this model to support students.
Oh man, I think that's dope. That's great. We clap that up real quick. Clap that up real quick for real. But you said something that sparked my next question. Post-pandemic, pandemic and then post-pandemic. Especially with working in your field as a principal. And you're there every day, long hours, very much long hours.
Yes.
Right? What is your take on digital literacy being accepted as a second language in the classroom?
So I would say that it's been challenging because, you know, we all were probably pushed into it.
Right. And
now it's probably more of a comfort zone where teachers are back to where they are comfortable. You know what I mean? Kind of, not everybody stand and deliver, but you know, now I think one thing my media specialist and I talked about, she's getting ready to start doing, I think it was maybe Tech Tuesdays, where teachers can come and get these tech tips, because we're now a one-to-one district. So how can we equip teachers with more tools for students to actually use their devices? So they have them, but are we using them to the full effect? You know what I mean?
I like it.
So,
yes.
So that's one thing she and I talked about, because we were pushed into it, but then we all came back. But are we really equipped, and are we really using them the way that we could? You know, there's so many things you can push out onto the students' laptops, so many, you know, different ways that you can use it, and everything doesn't have to be stand and deliver. You know, you could drop some things into Canvas, or because that's what our platform is, Canvas. Have students do some activities, you know, virtual books. There's so many different things you can do, but I don't know. I think teachers were trained really quickly on the things they needed, but there's so much out there that, you know, then it's like get them all back, you know, high impact learning, teach them what we need to teach them to move them forward now. But then where's the, you know, we're still missing trying to get the teachers the neat things and the cool things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So trying to find the time for that. And I know there's teachers that want to learn it, you know what I mean? So it's finding that balance of what we do to support the teachers. So, you know, that's one thing we're doing. My media specialist, she and I met, and that was one conversation we had. So she's trying to do some of that. You know, one thing you mentioned, and I want to go back to because I didn't answer your question fully, was the difference between assistant principal and principal, like the day-to-day. They're both very busy. But one thing I can say as an assistant principal, the work I did around restorative practices, or the work I did with, you know, equity, I was able to carry those things into my principalship because I was lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to stay at Southwest. So I was able to now train some people to do some of those things. So I was able to still carry those initiatives. Yes, the days are long and the days are heavy and they get busy. But as an assistant principal, you get to be involved in experiences. As a principal, you get to lead more people and build more leaders into doing those things.
Okay. So I want to pivot real quick. I want to ask you about how, now that you made a statement a second ago about different types of educators being in the classroom, whether it be from like hybrid learning or what'd you say, stand and deliver.
Lecture style.
Yes. Is that in person?
Yeah.
Okay. And then also you have your online type, right? And now they have to, I guess, kind of figure out where they stand as far as like how to best deliver their lessons to the students. How important or how impactful is it for them to understand in the classroom as an educator where their strengths are with digital literacy and teaching, or
as an educator? You mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's critically important because our students are in so many different places, and the students probably know way more than we do. Are, you know, a lot more savvy than we are in certain ways, but I think it's important that we do have to understand what the students' needs are, because we have to know that we have to keep the students engaged, and it's not always going to be a stand and deliver. You know, students' attention spans are different. Students, you know, they play video games and their minds are moving a mile a minute, you know, so students are just different. They're not, you know, we have this conversation all the time. Students, you know, students aren't the same students from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 15, 20. Students are just different. Students were different prior to the pandemic. Students are different after the pandemic.
Right.
You know, so I think it's important that we know digitally what students need. We have to know and it's a mix, right? We have to know what students need academically. Digitally, how do we fit into their academic needs as well? How do we wrap all of that? How do we wrap all of that in? And I think we have to, you know, we've done some, my media specialist did a survey to ask some of the teachers, what do they need? So I think that's how she's kind of tailoring some of her lessons. So some of the teachers may or may not know exactly what they need.
Right.
And I have such a wide array of teachers, and I was listening to a podcast a few weeks back, and it said that some buildings have 5 generations of teachers in it. That's wide.
Yeah.
You know, that's wide. So you have some teachers who are just fresh out of college, and they can do a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
And then you have some who are just probably like, I don't even want to be bothered, you know, with it. So you have to, but where we ask our teachers to differentiate for our students, we have to also differentiate for our teachers if we're being fair.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I was, like I said, one statement before to somebody else. I grew up in the right era where like tech was before tech was tech, and then it boomed, and then I was like, oh, I'm in the right era, right?
Yeah.
So and then I got into education myself as a high school educator, and my classroom was lit. All my classroom was so lit. Now I ain't gonna lie, I ain't have all them poster boards up, talking about emotions and all that. Big frowny face. I ain't had that. That was like.
But we have that by tech now because we can.
We
my,
do.
My RS people, my restoration, they use a mood meter. So when the kids come in, they put the mood meter up.
I had that.
Yeah.
I had that.
Yeah, but
like
that's
you could slide it, right? It was engaging.
It was. Yeah.
And the kids loved it, even though it was something simple. It was like, yo, I can touch it, right? And then also me as an educator, I use I was super creative. I used to use Instagram. I had a page on Instagram just for my class, per period, and just I would post like the pre engagement. It sounds like the bell ringers and stuff like that on Instagram, and the kids, because they were on their phone anyway, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of, I won't say old school, but a lot of seasoned educators, they did not want no phones in there. That was like phones down, and I was like, I'm the guy like, yo, phones up, like we got it. I can still do this, right? Because it's gonna be hard to catch their engagement if you tell them phones down. You got the attitude, you got the on God, bro. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, let me think outside the box methodically. I'm gonna use Instagram. So if I had like a second period class, I'm gonna post a bell ring up there, and I'm gonna use it as a reel. And the kids got to use the computers to go find the answer, and then come back, and then they got to post the answer into the story.
Yeah.
Best idea I ever had.
Engagement.
Right?
And I think that we have that's a place we are in our building with students using phones, because there was one time it was no phones. You can't have phones at all. And our leadership team, we've really moved the needle with phones. Kids and AirPods. It's a bone of contention. But students are using phone. I mean, when I was in the classroom, I had students, tweeting stuff out, or I was using Blackboard, and that's old, but and I would have students using the technology and posting comments and things like that, because it's just what they knew how to do. You have to lean into their technology. We have to understand where the students are in order to engage the students and get them going. I mean, we walk around with our phones and our devices, and it's just how the culture functions right now. It's not out of the ordinary. When you look at some business and some workplaces, I mean, Google, they walk around and what they wear is totally different. They're a technology place. They walk around in AirPods and their phones, and so I just think we have to, the amount of technology that people are around at work, if we're teaching our students to be in a technology society, not a distraction. I think we have to teach them how to engage with technology appropriately in the appropriate place, and how to do it.
Driving bars, that's a gem right there. We need that.
Yeah.
But I think that what you're saying is extremely important. How important is it, or what is your thought process on, from an educator standpoint, right? From educator and up, like the principals, superintendents, to really fully. I'm not that high yet. I'm not there yet. You will be. You're gonna speak that into existence.
I'm not there yet.
Saw this today. Right?
I don't know about that.
How important is it for that particular level of people in education to support the theory, right, of digital literacy in the classrooms itself? Like for example, you have the educators. I gave my example as an educator. You're a principal. I'm not a principal, but you gave your examples of like your day in the life as a principalship, and you're tech savvy. Like,
but I don't think so.
You're pretty tech savvy. You can get it done,
sure,
right?
Sure,
if not,
absolutely.
You can research it,
right?
But in regards to like having that full support system for educators, like, do you think it's more training that needs to be involved, or more technical devices bought for them? Like, what is
for students?
From the educators and up. Like, we already know the students.
Sure.
They're gonna have their technology.
Yeah.
Right. But as far as the training, like,
I think we have to know. Well, we're not going to know every single thing, but I think we have to know. We have to have the knowledge as well, or as much as we can, so we can be able to work with, our teachers and our students as well. Are we going to know every single thing? Probably not. Like not every single device and how to know and operate and flip every single thing. But I think it's important that we're introduced to the technology and we engage with the technology as well. Our students and our teachers are probably going to be closer to it. But if I have a training on a particular thing in my building, I want to go. So as I'm talking to my teachers, and if I expect them to use it in the classroom, I want to be engaged with it too myself. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And what we will try to do is, if there's a piece of technology, as my media specialist is introducing things, if there's a piece of technology that I want them to use in the building, I want to know what it is, and I want to know how to work it as much as I can. Now, we're probably doing working on 1,000 other things too, but I want to be as engaged as I possibly can. But I think there's a level of our job too, is to make sure that they have the resources that they have. So it might not be so much that we have to know every single click and button within every piece of technology, but I think we definitely need to make sure that we have enough training to be able to share with our teachers and make sure that we have enough knowledge to say, all right, this is going to be effective for our students, and how can we make sure that you have all the support that you need and all the training that you need to make sure it's going to affect our student growth and achievement.
That's dope. Okay. So it's strategy also. It's not just throwing tech out there. We've got to have a strategy on how we're going to implement this into the classrooms for the students.
Yeah, and how's it going to overall affect our data? I don't think we should just pick any random technology and say, hey, let's just do this, let's just do that. I think we need to strategically look at our data and say, who is this going to affect? How is it going to affect them? And look at the long-term goals.
Okay. We got to wrap it up here. So I got one, maybe two questions left, but my main one I want to ask real quick. What is your prediction in the next 5 to 10 years as far as how education will be implemented with digital literacy in the classroom for educators? Be as creative as you want. As creative as I want? Yeah, use your imagination. Give me your prediction though for 5 to 10 years.
What I hope is that we are able to learn from the pandemic and take that data to understand the different academic needs of all students.
Okay.
Meaning, the pandemic definitely highlighted there are students that, are completely fine online. There are those students.
True.
There are students who they're not well working online. They need every bit of support that they need, and we need to make sure that those kids have every single thing they need and they're supported. There's some kids who need that hybrid. There's some students who need to be in building full time. I'm hoping that, the pandemic oddly created some innovation, and I'm hoping that education learns from that and gleans from that and pulls from that, and we become even better. Because I think we do some great things educationally, but I'm hoping we become even better for our students academically and support them.
Yeah, I think it forced them to, when you say innovator, I thought that was really dope. You dropped a little gem in there. but to be innovator, I think it forced educators and above to be, like you said, innovative.
Yeah.
And think outside the box.
Yeah, it definitely did. Things we would not have done if we weren't in the midst of a pandemic.
Right.
We wouldn't have, made sure all students had laptops, and in most districts across the nation, those are just things we would not have just up and done, But it really pushed us. It really, it just pushed us to another level.
It shifted the culture of education, if you will.
It really shifted, and it really some good things came out of it for our students. I'm hoping that we're able to continue some of that innovation.
Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. I appreciate you coming out today to the
Yes.
the teachers' lounge. You
Yes.
feel me?
I am happy to be in the teachers' lounge. I didn't get my meal though, because usually in the teachers' lounge what we eat, but
We got the vending machines. You know what I'm saying? It's $1.25 for water.
Take it. That went up from
It
when I
went
was
up,
in the
didn't
teacher,
it?
but that's okay.
Yeah, the
No,
teachers'
I definitely
lounge
enjoy
was
being
popping
here.
that. I appreciate you though. We're gonna do this again.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
This is Dr. Monell, and I'm Dr. Morris, aka Dr. Digital, and thanks for coming to the Teachers Lounge.
Thank you.